All right. Welcome to the fifth ever episode of the Wall Street Stonks podcast. How you doing, man?
Good, good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, anytime. If people don't already know, this is the perfect opportunity for you to introduce yourself. So go ahead and tell us who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
You got it. So I'm Roger Cawdette. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Finary. Think of us as Discord for investing. We're a place where you can talk about your investments with your friends and join communities around topics you might be interested in. So whether you're someone who's a more active trader and trades meme stocks or more old-fashioned and does long-term investing, there are communities on our platform for all of those interests. But happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
That is super exciting. I remember when we first talked, you told me that you created Finary and it's the Discord for investing. And I thought to myself, holy crap, how did you manage to create something like that? So if you don't mind, let's just dive into the story. How did that even happen?
Yeah. So basically a little over a year ago, my co-founders and I were all college students. And the interesting thing back then was that we noticed that a lot of our friends were getting invested in the stock market for the first time. And rather than using, Motley Fool, CNBC, a lot of these legacy resources to get involved, they're actually very much relying on friends, like conversations over text message, Discord, GroupMe, Slack, you name it. So the basic idea back then was, how about we go and find a way to take this process of talking about your investments with friends and put it on a specialized platform. So that was the initial idea. Since then, things have definitely changed. We've gone through a couple of prototypes, various versions of our platform. But at this point, we're very much focused on this foundation of group chats, constant communication, being able to spontaneously have these conversations between market open and market close. And it's been a lot of fun so far, and we're excited about the future.
That's super awesome. I'm actually on Finary. If people watching this don't know,
Yes, sir.
and I'm loving every second of it. I got brought on during, would you call it the beta phase? Are you
Right.
guys?
Yeah. I'd say
Are
we're
you
still
guys
in a
still
beta.
in?
That's right.
Yeah, I was just gonna say if you're still in beta, but it seems like a more advanced beta now. When I got on, you and I would work together and talk about different features we would like to see and different functionality, like cleaning some stuff up. And I thought that was a really unique opportunity for both of us to be able to work together and really optimize what creators would look for in a group chat type application. So
Right.
I'm super excited to be a part of it. I'm super excited that you're here to share your story about it. So you said you started to notice that people aren't getting stock advice or talking about stocks or getting educated about stocks through the traditional routes, but instead they're talking with friends. Is that how you got started in stocks, or what's your story?
Yeah. So for me, I started investing right when I got to college, about 2.5 years ago at this point, and I was a big Robinhood user. A couple of friends had told me about it. I just threw in a couple of, I think, 2K of graduation money, and basically lost most of it. I think I was up at one point from 2K to 10K on Tilray call options, right? And then I lost all of it basically over the course of 2 weeks. And it made me realize that, investing in the stock market for the first time on your own is just not easy. It's incredibly difficult, right? But over time, I would spend way more time with my friends in our group chats, talking about investments, sharing research duties, really just collaborating. And I got way better at investing. The process was way more fun. So it tied back to that core concept behind Finary of, people are much better off when they're investing alongside their friends or just other like-minded people. But that's sort of the goal that we're going for, making it so that no individual person has to navigate the stock market alone, that they can do it alongside others.
That's awesome. So you're telling me your first investing experience was jumping into Tilray options?
Right, exactly.
That's
It was
crazy.
crazy. Yeah.
Was that an emotional roller coaster or what? How did you feel?
For a long time, it was just purely positive in that I would look at my portfolio and be up like 20% literally every single day.
Hmm.
And when you're doing very well for an extended period of time, you automatically think that you're the best investor in the world. It's incredibly easy. You know more than everyone else. But when it crashed basically over the course of 1 week, you kind of realize that you don't know what you're doing. It's actually very complicated. But it was a cool experience while it lasted.
I bet. I think we've all had our fair share of options trades that go crazy and then just slam right back into our face. I like to say when people are first starting to invest, they always think that they're the next Warren Buffett, and they're
Right.
just super excited. They're like, dude, this is easy. I know exactly what I'm doing. And then they just get destroyed.
Right.
At what point did you hit up your other co-founders and team and start to decide to build a company around something like this?
Yeah. So after having, a couple of those initial inspirations, both from personal experience and noticing a lot of friends investing for the first time, basically, grabbed a friend and said, "Hey, let's dig more into this." So we sent out a couple of surveys over Instagram, posted them to our stories, got a couple thousand responses, and found some pretty interesting things. The main one being that of all of our friends who were already investing in the stock market, 90% of them had started through their friends, their family, or through social media. So based on that, the answer was pretty clear that young people in particular just clearly wanted a more social and communal way to engage around their portfolios. So beyond that, we recruited some more co-founders, a couple of guys from MIT, built out a prototype over the course of that past summer. It was kind of like a Reddit for investing with these open forums, message boards, upvote, downvote type thing. And then quickly realized that people don't necessarily want to contribute to a message board. It's not as communal and engaging as having these intimate back and forth discussions with your friends and like-minded people. But since then, we've pivoted to this more Discordian model of spontaneous conversations, and it's been a lot of fun. I mean, you're on the platform as well. What are your thoughts so far?
No, I'm loving it so far. It's very different from, like you said, a forum. It's nothing like that. And
Right.
it's more of a group chat. Like it literally feels like you're opening up your phone and going to a group chat with your friends and then
Right.
saying, wow, did you see this stock today? What are your thoughts on this? And then I also have a channel on my Finary where I post what I'm trading live,
Right.
and it's not necessarily meant to be like, hey, copy this trade. It's more of, hey, look at what I'm doing. And I think that's really important when it comes to someone in my position where I create content on TikTok. And I think, and I know a lot of other good content creators think the same way, where I like to give that education out for free. And I like
Right.
to give people the opportunity to get exposed to the stock market. And I want to create that opportunity for people to learn that you can put your money to work so you don't have to.
Mhm.
And I'll make videos on this all the time. I'll make videos about the concept of long-term investing, and I'll even drop some videos about some options trades that I've done and how I do it. But if you want to see how I'm currently applying the over 15 years of experience that I have live, Finary is just an amazing platform for me to be able to do that. Um, people will see what I'm doing and ask questions live. Why do you do this? Why do you think this? What else could you have done? What should I do? And it just has this open platform where you can really collaborate with each other and put a lot of great minds together to come up
Right.
with trade ideas, to come up with future trade ideas, to analyze your trade, see if this was a good trade or a bad trade, and really get your thoughts down on paper. Now,
Right.
another note about getting your notes down on paper is ink has no emotion. And one of the biggest
Mhm.
problems with trading is that you get emotional. Should I sell? Should I buy? Is this the right time? Is what's my plan? And when I get that out on Finary, when I type it, I have a physical connection to my plan now. I say like, "Hey, I just bought this. I'm thinking about doing a quick flip." Now, I don't have to think about it again when my quick flip opportunity presents itself.
Right.
I look at what I wrote. That was my plan. Now I can execute my plan. Let's do it.
Right.
And there's no emotions connected to it anymore. I get my thoughts out and I attack based off of what I said I would do. It
Right.
holds you accountable, and I just really love that whole system. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm excited to keep and growing this community and getting a lot of like-minded people on the community, because I mean, the more people, the better.
Yeah.
And
Right.
right,
Exactly.
yeah, the more people, the better, because we can all just talk and it creates an opportunity for everybody to just get educated and see what everyone else is doing. So I'm loving it so far. Um,
Right. Yeah.
what do you think?
Huge.
Did you guys make Finary during COVID?
Yeah. So we basically started the company at the start of COVID. The main reason actually that we had so much time to work on it is because we had just been kicked off of campus because schools were shutting down, had all this abundance on the time to work on this at the time, what was a project on the side. Spent that following summer doing full-time jobs, internships, and then working on this at night and on the weekends, just really grinding on it. And then that following fall, we got into Y Combinator, which was an awesome experience. Learned a ton about startups. Basically, just realized the really big opportunity for this space. And then that January, so this past January, this whole episode with Wall Street Bets, GameStop happened, and this whole world of social investing just really blew open. In that, stock trading is now, pretty core main part of American culture at this point. It's no longer a fad. It's a thing that a lot of people do with meme stocks. Very beginners are getting into the market for the first time. So it's really an amazing thing. And it's great at Finary that we're thinking a lot about building this infrastructure to host these conversations in these communities. Going off what you were saying earlier, it's kind of like this big party, this big conversation, as opposed to broadcasting your thoughts to a feed or something. So I will also add the point that with our group, our conversations daily in particular, it's pretty addicting for me. Like I'm always on there. I think I use Finary at this point way more than I use like Discord or text message or anything like that. So it's cool to be building something in that space.
That's super exciting. How difficult was it? I know you had a lot more time, but were you limited at all by COVID?
Not really. I think we were enabled in a lot of ways by COVID.
Mm-hmm.
People weren't really hanging out. Shops were closed. There weren't that many forms of out of house entertainment. So you just spent all time inside. But I think on another note, COVID created a lot of the conditions that led to this, social investing revolution. In that back in March, the markets bottomed out. People had their stimulus checks. They were stuck at home, had all this time to finally start investing in the stock market. Awesome creators like you and Austin Hankwitz on TikTok were posting all this great content for beginners, really just creating this perfect storm to get novice people into the market for the first time. So it's definitely been a positive thing for this space and this business so far, but definitely a lot.
That's awesome. What do you see as the future for Finary?
Yeah. So our mission at Finary is to build the world's best investment community. So we want any given person who has any remote interest in the stock market or conversing around their portfolio to come to our platform. No more, texting about your investments with friends. No more Discords or even Wall Street Bets. We want all those people to come to our platform and utilize our tool set. Right on our platform. In addition to your conversations, you have access to live market data, market news, your actual portfolios, and being able to execute trades from our platform. So that's really the vision and the dream there.
That's awesome. How big is your team, and what kind of positions do you have? Like, who's working on what?
Yeah, at this point, we're pretty small. We have a total team of 5 full-time. We got 3 awesome engineers, someone working on product, myself basically just covering everything else. But we're hiring right now. So it's been an awesome experience. We just moved to this new office here in New York City, the financial capital of the world. We're growing our team, and it's an exciting time.
That's awesome. How has this project impacted your school? Because I know a lot of people, they go to college, and at some point in their college career, they might want to start a business, or they might want to start a side project or a side hustle, or maybe they're thinking about their career future.
Yeah.
You were in the middle of school, or did you finish school and then you decided to start this?
So I started this after my sophomore year of college. I've since stepped away, dropped out, whatever you want to call it. I do aspire to go back someday down the line, but it's been an awesome opportunity. I think my school in particular has a lot of flexibility with being able to come back whenever you want. And with startups, especially in this case, you just can't wait on it. I think the social investing space is ripe for disruption and innovation right now. So definitely want to make the most of the opportunity. Um, and the great thing about working on your own company and your own startup is that you get to tackle a space and a problem that you actually care about. Like I was saying before, with personal experience and losing all that money by navigating the market alone, it's incredibly empowering to be able to build a platform that helps people not face those same experiences.
Yeah, definitely. I know sometimes you'll get yourself in a situation where you're up 100%, 200%, and you don't
Right.
know, should I do it? Should I not do it? And then you just send out a
Right.
message and start getting some input so you can actually make a educated decision. So
Exactly.
I know that's one big influence on why I really love the platform. It just
Right.
allows you to process your thoughts on paper.
With other
Um,
people. Exactly.
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened, yesterday, 2 days ago, when I was up 100% on that call, and you're like,
yeah.
you should probably just sell it. And I did,
Yeah.
and it was great.
Yeah. And I
So,
never want to, I always hesitate because you'll come to me in the chat and be like, yo, this thing is up like 1,000,000%. What do I do? And then I'm like, oh, I mean, this is what I would do.
right.
I never want to tell you or give you financial advice because I'm not a financial professional. It's
Exactly.
not what it's not what I studied. It's not what I went to school for. It's not my profession, but it's something that I just know a lot about.
Right.
And it's through my experience. And that's how I approach that situation where it's like, listen, you're killing it, but this is what I would do.
Right.
You can do whatever the hell you want, but this is what I would
Exactly.
do. And again, if enough people give that input, and if you find some common trends within that input, you might be able to make an educated decision on what you want to do. So, um, yeah, that's what I like about that.
On that
On the
same note, I
yeah,
will add very quickly that Finary is not a platform for investment advice. It is
mm-hmm.
purely for, communication and entertainment purposes, just to have these cool conversations with friends and people of similar interests, just like you were saying there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I always cringe when I see people throw out financial advice and present it as such when they
Right.
have no merit to be giving that financial advice, both
Exactly.
morally and possibly even legally. Um, you really can't position yourself that way if you're not somebody who's allowed to do so.
Exactly.
And going back to my whole core theme of not only my TikTok but my brand and everything I say and do, it is all for educational purposes only.
Right.
Everything I say, everything I do, even the disclaimer in the description of this YouTube video, it's all educational purposes,
Mhm.
entertainment, but mostly watch what I'm doing. And
Mhm.
if you can watch enough of what other people are doing, you don't
Mhm.
necessarily have to copy them, but what you do get is that secondhand experience. And you
Right.
get that information from them, and you can take little nuggets from everybody. You can watch different creators, what they're doing, and take some strategies that you like that fit for your own personal financial situation, and you
Exactly.
can do what you want to do but with collective experience.
Right.
So that's my whole theme and brand and concept is just take what you want and apply it to yourself. Which actually leads to my next point, the creator economy. So
Yes.
there are so many creators and there are so many people creating content. How has this blown up in the past couple of years, and where do you think it will eventually go?
Yeah, totally. I think it's a crazy exciting space. Basically, as of a handful of years ago, all that people really had was Jim Cramer and Mad Money and watching the lineup on CNBC, which is great, of course. But I think with Gen Z in particular, with younger retail investors, we're not necessarily looking to watch day-long broadcasts to get new ideas on the market. So this whole evolution of the creator economy, specifically within investing on TikTok, on Discord, on YouTube, it's been awesome in that you have people just like you, like Austin, like all these other creators who are just sharing bite-sized, digestible 30-second video ideas on stocks, how you do personal budgeting, how you think about diversifying your portfolio, all for free, right? With this distribution model of TikTok and that algorithm. So it's really expanded access to not financial advice like you were saying, but financial education, which is super important for people who have never, invested at all.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Um, where do you think it'll end up going? Because it's definitely boomed, and it's
Right.
definitely huge, and it is saturated, but there always is opportunity for people to continue to grow in this space. I'm curious
Right.
what your thoughts are 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Where does this go?
I think we could see a more formalized financial creator system in that right now it's just about sharing your thoughts on the market, producing content, but eventually there could be opportunities for me to copy your portfolio exactly, a Wall Street Stonks ETF of some sort, or maybe you get certified and I trust you so much that I decide to give you $1,000 to manage for me. Actually having this creator economy applied to the actual financial system instead of what we currently have, where you have these high minimum balances. It's very expensive and inaccessible to a lot of people, and the creator economy can kind of unlock that for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's super interesting to think of how to tie in this creator economy with the mainstream
Right,
stock and finance economy that has been doing what it's doing for over 50 years. But there's this new technology that allows people like me to create content that's so accessible to people when it usually wasn't.
hmm,
When I started investing, it was literally just Kramer on TV. I knew
right,
him as that stock guy on TV. I'm like, oh, hey dad, like what is this guy saying? And my dad's like, oh, he's just talking about some other stock. So that was the only real exposure or influencer really on stocks
right,
for in my experience. I'm sure there was a ton of other
sure,
things for other people, but in my
right,
experience, I would turn on the TV and I would see Kramer yelling at the screen about something, and I'm like,
hmm,
okay, this guy looks crazy, but he was actually like giving some valuable information, so whatever. But
right.
now, like I said, there's so many people though. How do you think? I'm trying to figure out a way to word this. It's
Sure.
who survives? What kind of creators do you think survive this bubble of influencers?
That's a super interesting question. I would think those that are of the highest quality and the best reputation and the strongest brand, as well as those who actually build an authentic connection with their audiences, would be those who survive. Um, People like Austin, people like you, who are producing more content, these conversations in a very fireside chat manner, but also probably the creators who actually have the best returns on their portfolio. Another thing that we think about at Finery in terms of feature sets is being able to actually verify that the creator knows what they're doing, seeing their portfolios in real time, seeing that they actually have a good performance, seeing their actual holdings. Um, I think currently in this general social investing space, there isn't a lot of transparency in terms of understanding what the other person is currently doing, right? You can go on any online forum and share an idea, but no one has any idea as to your credibility, as to your background. So, uh, going back to your question of those that survive, those who are most transparent, actually good at investing, and can build a good connection with their audience members is how I think about that one. What do you think?
100% on the same page. I think transparency is a huge one. Um, for example, you see a lot of different creators creating content, but you don't really know what the motive is. And
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
understanding motive, understanding where the money's coming from, where the money's going, allows you to
Mm-hmm.
make more educated decisions. So
Right.
anytime I give my input on a stock, I would like everybody to know my current position and why
Yeah.
I think that. Because if I say AMC's going to the moon,
Right.
well, do I really think that? Is my money where my mouth is?
Mhm.
What is my motive for saying that?
Right.
And that level of transparency, so you understand where my money is, why I'm
Mhm.
saying what I'm saying, and what I actually think, that level of transparency gives you that authenticity.
Mhm.
And I think authenticity with branding is the most important thing. Warren Buffett has a quote, I don't remember it exactly, but it's like, it takes 20 years to build trust, but 5 minutes to ruin it all. And that process is what stuck with me with branding. So I do think those types of people, those types of creators are the ones to survive a bubble, or
Right.
those to last the longest. Even if it's not a bubble, it's still about endurance in this
Mhm.
market. Just like with any company, you can make a restaurant, and if it's the best restaurant in the world, there's still 5 other restaurants that might last longer than you
Right.
for a number of reasons. So it's the same thing with this creator economy, and I think it's really interesting to see how it's all going to play out, especially because now I'm in the middle of it. So
Right.
I'm
Star.
personally invested to see how this goes. Which authenticity leads me to my next question.
Mhm.
You see a lot of people talking about a lot of different stocks, and a lot of people have a lot of influence now. When I
Mhm.
first made my TikTok, I would make a video and only a couple hundred people would see it. Now, when I
Mhm.
make a video, tens of thousands of people see it.
Right.
I made a video a couple weeks ago, over 1.7 million people saw it. And
Right.
it's cool, but it's also scary because I'm thinking, who else could hold a power like that where you can
Right.
get information out? What can you do with that information? What are the potential pros and cons of sending out information to that many people? And it's just super interesting for me to think about the influence part of an influencer.
Right.
So, what do you think some pros and cons of
Yeah.
influence are?
There are two parts or two sides to that question. In that, the first is the pro is that a lot of people have access to these tools on TikTok or social media. A lot of people can become creators and influencers on the market. So you sort of decentralize the concentration of influence on a small group of people. The example that comes to mind is back in last March, where Bill Ackman went on CNBC, gave his hell is coming talk, and basically the S&P tanked by what, like 0.45%, which
Mm-hmm.
is what, hundreds of billion, a lot of money,
A
a
lot.
lot of money
Yeah.
within the market. But we're shifting more towards a world where 100, even thousands of individual creators can now have that collective influence. So there's less exposure and less risk that way. But the other side is, like you're saying, small people can have, a fair amount of influence on a large group of people, which comes with a lot of responsibility. But I'd be super curious to hear more about how you think about navigating all of that.
I don't take it lightly.
Mhm.
So, a lot of people have a lot of opportunity to make a lot of money, lose a lot of money, and
Yeah.
influence other people to make or lose a lot of money. And it's actually, I've said it 100 times now in a lot of different videos, but it's part of the reason why I made my TikTok is to help combat that negativity that I saw a lot
Right.
of. And I grew up with a specific investment ideology and philosophy where you just, it's very responsible. You set a certain amount of money aside and then you
Right.
invest it in companies that you know, love, understand, use around you all the time.
Exactly.
And that's how I invest, and I know it works. I know it does. And I see someone else guaranteeing the world, and it's scary for me to think about who's getting hurt by that.
Mhm.
And when I see
Yeah.
Elon Musk tweeting something crazy about like, oh, Dogecoin going to the moon, and then who's now investing into Dogecoin? Is it people who can afford to lose that money? Or is
Right.
it people that are desperate enough to want to take their money to unrealistic expectations?
Right.
And it hurts me to see people like that get hurt.
Mhm.
So that's what I don't want.
Right.
And that's what I think a huge con to this massive level of influence is.
Mhm.
But it's super interesting to see different groups of people, different buckets of people with all of their different intentions, and their
Right.
it creates like a bubble of this bubble of people like to do this bubble of people like to do this, and then you can go hop into that bubble and be surrounded by like-minded people, and it kind of creates like an echo chamber effect, but it could be used for good or it could be used for bad. So
Right.
that's what I think about it. How do you think something like Finary will help avoid people getting hurt?
Totally. I think there's a lot of opportunity to actually do a crowdsourced rating system. Like, hey, I've been in X community for this amount of time. I've made this much money, lost this much money. Here are my thoughts on the actual creator. Here are my thoughts on whether or not I think they're actually credible and know what they're talking about. Take my opinion as to what you think. But on the flip side, there's also a lot of opportunity to be like, hey, user, what are your preferences? Are you a long-term investor? Do you want to take on more risk? Let us know. And we're going to recommend these 5 communities that are tailored to your interests, that not only have a creator with a similar style of investing, but other members with a similar style of investing. And then also potentially attaching on the group performance of everyone in that organization, so that you can actually see, okay, these collective people know what they're doing. I want to go join them. All going back to that issue of, how do you help people navigate the market alongside others in a very responsible manner? But I'd be curious, beyond that, what are some other things that you might think to add there?
I think it's super cool. When you were talking, I just got an idea popped in my head. It kind of sounds
Yeah.
like the Yelp of stocks.
Yeah,
Where it's
exactly.
like,
Right.
yeah, it's like, should I go to this restaurant or not? And you see user generated content around it. You see people posted pictures of it. It's not a photo shoot from the company itself. You see people giving ratings on the food and their experience. It's very similar to, hey,
Right.
this guy usually talks about X, Y, and Z. Here's my profit and loss. So far,
Right.
so good. And I think social, I don't know what the word is, but it's like social proof.
Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
and I think social proof is going to be the most important element to navigating these waters.
Right.
Being able to you see so many people where you're like, there's no way this guy knows what he's talking about, but his
Right.
advertisements and his content is so good, and you're like, I would fall for that if I didn't know any better. And
Right.
people who are just starting in the stock market are trying to get educated in financial literacy and trying to figure out how to get their money to work for them might see
Right.
an advertisement like that and think that's where my money should go,
Right.
without actually getting any social proof of it. So I think that's actually a really important factor. I'm excited to see how Finary pulls that off, because I would
Yeah.
love to be able to and scroll through and just see who's doing what and where do I belong.
Right.
And I want to give people that opportunity as well, where, hey, join my channel because I like to talk about long-term investing. I like to talk about investing philosophies. I like to give some strategies on the best ways to enter and exit options trades. I like to teach
Exactly.
about why this option over this option. I like to talk about the differences between premium prices. I like to talk about specific companies. Why this company? What do I think about this company in 5-10 years? And then you kind of create this community where everybody can talk about it and brainstorm some ideas, and maybe you might get proven wrong, and it's just an awesome experience to be able to brainstorm like that. And
Definitely.
I don't think that's happening anywhere else. It's tough to do on TikTok. The comment section just gets crazy.
Exactly.
So having a community like that really helps.
Yeah. That's exactly what we mean when we say we want to build the world's best investing community. But I think you brought up an interesting concept there. So not only is it helpful to have a group of people to navigate the stock market, eventually with this whole world of social investing, it'll be very important to have a group of people to navigate just that world in order to find those eventual communities. But
Hmm.
it's definitely a set of problems and issues that we think a lot about here at Finary and are building solutions for.
Yeah, especially with all the different types of investors as well.
Right.
Because I know a lot of millennials will invest differently than like Gen Z would. And Gen Z trades night and day difference than like boomer stocks. So,
Right.
what are your thoughts on age groups, target audiences, and their preferences of investing?
Right. It's super interesting. Like I look at my mom's investment portfolio and it's just completely different from what I have. Like
Hmm.
she's big on financials, the JP Morgans and Bank of Americas of the world. For me, I'm into like Bumble stock. What else am I like? ARK Invest, a lot of new age innovation type investment plays. And I feel like Gen Z overall is very much attached to companies that have a strong brand, companies that they actually have the opportunity to interact with, like you were saying. So you use Airbnb or you go shopping on Amazon or maybe you go buy something from Starbucks, like companies that you actually have this personal relationship with. And then also, to a certain extent, companies that are just trending at the time, like AMC or BlackBerry, whatever it might be. But it's just a huge, huge difference from what they were doing decades ago. I mean, how do you think about uh, your trading style and investment style for your generation in particular?
I think I'm a really unique mix.
Uh-huh.
I think growing up, I saw a lot of the boomer style investing.
Hmm.
And ever since I was a kid, I knew that you should be investing in companies that you think will be doing what they're doing now, but better in 5, 10 years.
Hmm.
And I would always think of that. So I remember when Facebook first IPO'd and it
Hmm.
was like $27 a share or something like that around there.
Right.
And I thought to myself, of course you should invest in that. Of
Hmm.
course, no question in my mind. And I'm like,
Right.
that makes so much sense. And when I would explain that to older people, I'd be like,
Mhm.
Facebook is going to kill it. They're going to
Right.
be a fantastic stock. They would look at me and say, what are you talking about? It's just a social media platform. And back when it IPO'd, it had none of the functionality that it has now. It was a very
Right.
different application. And a lot of people couldn't see the value in it, but I saw the value in it because I saw it all around me. I saw people using it. I saw it just made sense. And the same goes with Amazon. I
Hmm.
was a Amazon Prime member for over 10 years. Why would
Right.
I not have been an investor for over 10 years? So I have that interesting mix of like, I can look at a company and be like, obviously, 100% obviously. And it
Right.
just makes sense to me. I don't even have to look at the financials. It just makes sense. And something I feel that way right now is Uber. And I always say this, it's anytime I go anywhere and I
Hmm.
need a ride, I'm not calling a taxi.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
just not. I'm going to take out my phone, my Apple phone, and I'm going to click on Uber. So that's
Right.
two companies right there.
Right.
And while I
Exactly.
wait for the Uber, I'm going to listen to Spotify.
Right.
And once I'm done listening to music on Spotify, I might go over to YouTube, which is Google.
Right.
And that's just how I see the world around me. And those companies, I better be invested in those.
Right.
So that's my personal investing strategies, and that's how I look at things. But I also don't have unrealistic expectations for my money.
Hmm.
Have you ever read The Richest Man in Babylon?
I have not. What's that?
You need to read it. It's
Right.
a they have an audiobook on YouTube. It's a story about the richest man in Babylon, and it's just filled with different just facts about it's stories, but it has a lot of lessons to be learned about money.
Hmm.
And one of the lessons is if you stretch your gold to unrealistic gains, it's going to fleet away. It's going to go to someone else. And if you don't protect your money, it's going to go to somebody who protects that money.
Hmm.
So, reading that book, seeing the real life application of different philosophies that I saw in that book, that kind of formed my investing strategy overall.
Hmm.
So, when I actually see different Gen Z investing styles, like I agree with you on focusing on brands. That makes a lot of sense. But focusing on meme stocks and focusing on hype kind of raises a yellow flag to me
Right.
on, are you expecting your money to go to unrealistic gains?
Right.
And it might be a hard lesson for people to learn,
Mhm.
but also some people are getting rewarded for these bad decisions. You
Mhm.
can't argue that people didn't make a lot of money on Dogecoin. A lot of people made a lot of money, but also a lot of people got burned.
Right.
So, what are your thoughts on that whole meme hype investing style? Why do people do that?
I think they do it just going back to that same concept of trends and fads, being
Mm-hmm.
able to invest in the hype right now, especially for those who are just getting into the market for the first time. They don't necessarily realize that if a given stock goes up 100% in a day, it will probably go down the very next. But another way of thinking about it is that it's actually a very valuable, expensive lesson in investing. Like going back to my personal experience of going from 2K to 10K and losing it all, I basically paid 10K to learn about how to not invest. So in some ways, it's very good for those who are first starting off, especially if they're not putting too much money into the market. But it's definitely very, very harmful. And we think a lot about how we might protect against those certain behaviors. But as for this whole trend of meme stocks, I wonder what's going to happen in the future with it all.
Regulation.
Yeah.
I think you hear a common trend of let's take down the hedge funds, let's cause a short squeeze, let's make this stock go to the moon. This crypto will give you a million times return on your money. The
Right.
list goes on of all the key hype, trendy, hot words, clickbait, different SEO. Like there's so much behind these words. And I look at YouTube analytics all the time, and
Mhm.
I would get rewarded to create a video about AMC right now, GME, BlackBerry, uh,
Right.
Dogecoin price prediction is another keyword. There are so many things that I would get rewarded for making a video about, but like I don't care. So,
Right.
um, but that's all just boiling. It's like a boiling water. And when people get so hyped and so excited and pour a lot of money into things like this that could potentially impact the economy,
Mhm.
that's when regulation comes in. And
Right.
I'm super, super curious to see how this all plays out. I have no idea how it's going to play
Yeah.
out. I've never seen anything like this before, but that's when policy comes in. And people will come in and say, okay, you know what? Pattern day trading. How do you think that started? So you can't trade more than 3 times in 5 days if you have less than $25,000 in your account.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you'll get flagged as a pattern day trader. That is that's an actual policy, an actual law that the government puts on brokerages. And it's not the broker saying, "Oh, we don't want you to day trade more than 3 times." The broker wants you to trade as much as possible.
Mhm.
But the government looks at that and says that's dangerous for new investors. So they're
Mhm.
essentially protecting new investors from destroying their account.
Right.
And that's one example of policy. And that's one example of something that could happen with either crypto or meme stocks. You already see it when, like Robinhood, for example, limits trades.
Right.
It just actually recently happened with TD Ameritrade as well. TD Ameritrade added AMC to their list of restricted stocks.
Interesting.
So they're pumping the brakes. And I think Gen Z might think that they have more power than they actually do. Because sure, you can cause a hedge fund to lose a couple $1 billion, but at the end of the day, the hedge fund's gonna call the government and say, "Hey guys, we got you on speed dial. Do us a favor, pump the brakes." So there's back end power that many people don't know about.
Mhm.
So I'm just again super curious to see how this all plays out. Everybody always asks Powell, "What are your thoughts on this?" And he always says, "Listen, it's not my job. I just got to keep
Right.
printing money." And now Yellen is is working on a lot of different policy talks. She hits out a bunch of different headlines saying, I'm going to tax crypto, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So
Right.
it's just super interesting. And I have no idea. That's a long way of me saying I don't know.
No, yeah, totally. That's totally fair. I mean, none of us know what's going to happen. I think the interesting question there is, will regulations sort of adjust to the way that young people today invest their money, right? I think a lot of these regulations were made in mind for, okay, the default average American investor probably just does long-term holds.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're doing 3-day trades within 5 days, we should protect against that. But I think it's generally the case that a lot of young people do want to have very active portfolios. So should regulation necessarily go against that? Should it accommodate? I honestly don't know. I don't have the answers, but I'd be super curious to see how they think about accommodating people my age.
Yeah, definitely. What are your thoughts on all of the crypto hype?
Very cool. I think the crypto hype mainstream wise is very much based around Bitcoin, sort of Ethereum, a lot of Dogecoin, right? But it's actually a huge world. I'm just learning about it right now in terms of DeFi and decentralized finance. There's a lot of cool stuff underneath in terms of being able to rebuild our whole entire financial system, getting rid of centralized authorities, making the process faster, cheaper, and way more accessible. And I'm super curious to find out or to see if DeFi itself becomes mainstream. Maybe Finary can play a part in that. We'll see. But I guess that is a segue into a suggestion for some more content on TikTok. If you're ever thinking about making videos around DeFi, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I have a lot to learn when it comes to DeFi as well. What I think is the most exciting part of it all is the technology infrastructure behind everything.
Right.
It's essentially just a new technology with like endless opportunity. So when you were just talking about potential Finary involvement in something like that, something super interesting for me is you being as young as you are and you learning as much as you're learning right now.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very interesting dynamic for a business owner or somebody who is in charge of making decisions for a business. I feel like the more you learn about whatever you're passionate about, the more you can utilize Finary to explore those deeper and actually get involved with things. So you're essentially getting curious through education and then applying features and functionality through your tool.
Right.
I think that's super interesting. What are your thoughts on being a business owner and having opportunity like that?
It's pretty cool. That being said, it's a huge responsibility. Assuming Finary has tens of millions, hundreds of millions of users someday, you're basically impacting and influencing the way that they think about finances, whether that be to just invest in the stock market, buy certain crypto coins and tokens. And we think a lot about how we navigate that responsibly. But a big priority and a big value of ours here at Finary is to make sure that we simply just leave people better off than how we found them, whether that be being more educated about the markets, having a community of like-minded investors to guide and collaborate with, and actually having the tool set to access all these asset classes, right? Another interesting conversation is, right now people are primarily investing in public equities, the stock market, now crypto, but eventually there might be a world where people want to diversify across, fine art, wines, sneakers, creators, in real estate as well. So definitely something to think about. I mean, for you, I was asking you this question, I think last week, if you could diversify across all these asset classes, what would you think about?
Definitely real estate. I think one of the easiest, I don't know if it's easy, but one of the surefire ways of generating a lot of wealth is through real estate.
Right. Yeah.
So diversifying your stock portfolio with real estate as well is just a 1-2 knockout.
Right.
And then you got things like crypto. Being younger, I can take more risk. So I do have money in crypto as well. So I'm diversifying that way.
Mhm.
art, I feel like I need to be older to get into it. I don't know why. I
Yeah.
always think I need to be like 50 years old to appreciate art in that way. But
Mhm.
for example, like this thing.
All right.
Like this thing is a like the camera's in focus right now, but this is blurry. To me,
Right.
this is art. This is a gift from my wife,
Mhm.
and it's a limited print, limited quantity product, and you
Mhm.
can't buy this anymore from the company, but it's a you can buy it like aftermarket. So you could think of that as art.
Right.
Um, so that is another potential diversification of a portfolio. I have a
Right.
couple YouTube videos on Pokemon cards. I just got
Mm.
this like super nostalgic urge to just go buy a bunch of Pokemon cards, and I quickly learned that that market is extremely crazy right now. A lot of people
Right.
are buying the shelves off of these stores because they're reselling it. So it's like its own stock market.
Exactly.
And I bought a bunch, and then now I'm just keeping them. I texted my dad saying, "Hey, can you find my old Yu-Gi-Oh cards from when I was like
Right.
5?" So like I love things like that, but it all goes back to the philosophy of just buy, hold, and it'll appreciate in
Right.
value. I've
Exactly.
always loved to collect things. Well, I like to collect stocks now. And
Right.
I want to start collecting real estate all over the country. I want to start collecting cool art like that. But maybe when I'm older, I can start to appreciate paintings. I can start to like other things as well.
Right.
I know a lot of people collect like sneakers and stuff. It's pretty much anything that has value.
Mhm.
And value is such an open ended term where you can find something valuable that I hate and vice versa. So
Mhm.
it really depends, but that whole philosophy stays the same. Buy, hold, forget about it. It'll raise in value.
Exactly.
Which leads to my last question. What companies do you currently like to hold long term?
Let's see. Let me pull up my portfolio.
Sure.
I really love, so my big three that I love the most are probably Snapchat,
Mm-hmm.
Airbnb, and Disney. One, because they're great stocks and great long-term holds. I actually interact with all the products.
Mm-hmm.
But two, because I love the brand. Like I was saying, like I think the Airbnb story is amazing. I think Snapchat and the activities and social life that it fosters for young people is amazing. That's why I want to invest. But I do have things like TSM, Apple, Amazon, just
Mm-hmm.
good long-term holds as well. But those are my favorites there.
Awesome. I love to hear it. I always want to emphasize that invest in those companies that you know, love, understand, use, and see used
Right.
around you. I've said it a million times, and I'll say it a million more times. But I think that I'm just gonna get that tattooed on my forehead.
Exactly.
But you would never see it anyways because you can't see my forehead. But
Yeah.
no, I love it, man. Is there anything that you want people to know about Finary, about yourself, or anything like that before we close this off?
Let's see. Well, I guess I'd just say stay tuned for more information about our platform. Right now, we're in closed beta with a select number of users, but over the course of the summer, we'll be opening up to more people, and we're excited to continue to build a community here.
Awesome. And I'm super excited to be a part of it, and I'm super excited to get
Sure.
my community on there as well. Awesome, man. Before we close this out, speaking of community, I want you to
Yeah.
tell my community to make sure that they like this video. So I always
Okay.
tell them to like the video, and some of them do and some of them don't. But I was wondering, like, if you say it, if they will, they might listen to you more than they listen to me.
Oh yeah, totally. You got it. Like this video. It's a great content, right? It's a great conversation.
Exactly. There we go. So you heard it from him himself. Make sure to like that video, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Awesome.
And we're done.
Cool.
Cool. That was easy.